shut up and start the show.
Good afternoon, Dean Inman. How are you doing, my friend?
Daniel Battelle, I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How you guys all doing out there today? Thank you for showing up today. We have a great show in store for you with a very special guest that I had to twist his arm. D tied him down. We're going to take the muzzle off right before we bring him on, but we're very excited about having a very special guest with us today. I got to quickly say, D, 100,000 subscribers on your channel. That's pretty awesome, my friend. That's pretty awesome.
And I have to say, Daniel, 100,000 subscribers on your channel. That's also amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it's been an interesting week or two for both of us. So many of the people we know have been hitting high marks. Mr. Paul Peck, Mr. D. Nimmin, myself, hitting all these 100,000 subscriber marks. It's just been a blast watching all the people we know in our community hit them. The marks all at the same time, so it's been a lot of fun.
The crew's coming in hard. The crew is coming in hard, and everybody who's hitting the milestones. If you're hitting milestones, sound off in the chat right now. If you hit a milestone in the past week or so, let us know what your recent milestone is.
Yeah. So listen, we have a guest with us today that we have shared. We want to talk about why your YouTube channel might not be growing the way you'd like it to, But our friend that we brought with us today, his name is Matt Gielen. Matt is the founder and CEO of a company called Little Monster Media Co. They've been helping brands and build audiences here on YouTube for years. And he recently has come to this side of the camera, and he now feels the very real pain of being a content creator on his new channel on YouTube, Little Monster Media Co. So without any further ado, I'd like to please welcome Mr. Matt Gielen.
Hey, guys. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And I believe we're contractually obligated to say he is the #1 YouTube growth expert. I believe that's what he
is. I think
certified.
Is that right?
Certified growth expert. If you are not familiar with Matt, Matt is an audience building machine, and he's worked with a lot of the channels that we know here on YouTube. Matt, tell us about some of the channels you've worked with in your colorful past.
Thank you. We've done a ton of work here at Little Monster. We've worked with a lot of the major media companies in the world: BBC, NBC, CBS. Probably our biggest success to date was we took movie clips from about 150 million monthly to over 1 billion monthly views. We worked with Pencilmation very, very early on when he was doing just a handful of monthly views, and took him all the way up to 350 million monthly views. The list goes on. I think to date, we've had something like 120 or so clients. The majority of them being media companies. My background is working for media companies and building audiences for media companies. And when we launched Little Monster, that's who I knew and who hired us to consult or do production or do channel management. But that said, from time to time, we would work with a creator, right? So we worked with Epic Rap Battles for a little bit right before they came back. Did a ton of work with Good Mythical Morning. And then worked with a number of other, there you go. Worked with a number of other creators, big and small. But we started working with a lot more independent creators recently through Monster Thumbnails, and have done a ton of work there. I think we're at about 50, 60 clients on the Monster Thumbnails front. We're doing, about 1,200, maybe 1,500 thumbnails a month at this point. So it's been good. I got recognition through the papers I would write and publish on TubeFilter, reverse engineering the YouTube algorithm, how to use annotations, when the best time to post, the definitive guide on YouTube thumbnails, and so on and so forth. And that led to speaking engagements, which led to starting my agency, Little Monster.
That's awesome. Now I at first run into you at, I believe it was one of the massive conventions. I think it was maybe Clamor Summit or one of those where you were speaking. I've seen you on the speaking circuit, which is pretty impressive to see you come out swinging on stage. You don't really pull a lot of punches when you get out there. Surprisingly, you seem meek and mild right here, but then up on stage, next thing you know, it's like we're covering children's ears and things like that as you wound up. But you recently have done something different. Now, having worked with all these massive channels, someone like Good Mythical Morning, if you guys aren't familiar with GMM, Rhett and Link, these guys have multiple channels. They've got millions and millions of subscribers.
Absolute legends.
But you've done something recently that puts you back into the same circuit we are, which is actually starting a channel from scratch. And you've been actually doing the creation yourself for the most part, right? Making your own videos. I know you have an editor, but I mean, thumbnails and everything, right?
Yeah. Well, like so many of us in this field, in college, you learn editing, right? It's like kind of like the first skill set, like, turn on camera angles, that kind of stuff. But like really you spend a lot of time editing. It's the easiest kind of like, film studies thing. And so, when I got out of college, I would take freelance gigs doing everything from like executive producing a feature film to PAing on indie films and on commercials. The highlight of that period of my life was I got to PA for a couple of weeks on War of the Worlds.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
my one story from there is we were doing a location scout and we were responsible for the food. And so we set all the food up on the back of this SUV or whatever. Everyone kind of comes over and grab their lunch, and we were waiting for the guy, Spielberg, to come and get his thing before like we were allowed to eat. And so, Spielberg comes over and takes a look around, and I'm just like shitting my pants right now, right? It's the guy responsible for my childhood, just absolute legend. Kind of takes a look around, like rubs his beard and goes, "How are the brownies?" I go, "Good, a little moist." And he grabs his lunch, and all I'm thinking in my head is like, I just used the worst word in the English language with my hero and idol. So it's a combination of highlight and low light in my life. But
I'm sure he remembers you. You're that moist guy, aren't you?
Yeah, moist Matt,
sure
they call him. Yeah,
yeah. I'm sure I'm in his like journals. I'll be in his bio. So coming out and editing, I would edit for 4 or 5 years, and then at various times, and it just got to the point where I was like, I cannot keep up with this. There are people that are way better at this than me. And so with the kind of the YouTube channel that we started, the one thing that I wasn't willing to kind of invest time in, because running an agency with 13 employees and lots of clients, like I can't spend days editing content.
Right. I think we're all in that phase where when it comes to editing, that's the biggest investment of time. How's that work for you, D? What do you think?
Well, I've been editing for about 20 years. I'm fairly efficient at it, but maybe sometime in the next year, I might think about bringing on an editor just so I can make more content. Because even though I am efficient, 2 hours, an hour, even that's still time. So, every hour, every 2 hours or 3 hours, it adds up at the end of the week.
Absolutely.
So listen, the thing that we're here to really talk about today is to talk to some of the creators out here. And I got to let you guys know, there is a document down in the description that you can post some questions if you want to ask Matt, or you want to ask D, or if you're silly enough to ask me, you can ask all three of us at the same time. We're not doing hair tips today, so let's leave those out. But if you have any questions, please, about channel growth, this is the guy that you want to ask, because he's got a lot of answers. But the thing that we're really focusing on here is some of the small channel issues that I think that this is a perfect discussion for you, Matt, because you're in the trenches now, having worked with all the big channels, and now having to come from ground up and going, oh, now I'm on this side. I get it. You're seeing some of the things that we run into, and a lot of creators run into these hurdles that they feel like are insurmountable. Let me ask you right off the bat, Matt, from you coming to this side of the camera and really building a channel, what's the thing that surprised you the most, being a small creator going, hey, I'm starting at zero? What was that thing that you went, wow, this was harder than I thought?
Yeah. I mean, you've probably heard me talk about it before, but it's absolutely the performance piece of it. Like when I first started making videos on the Little Monster channel just a little over a year ago, I kind of came in with the same way that you mentioned earlier, that I walk into a stage and present, where it's like, I'm fucking Matt Gielen, bitch. Like, what I say is amazing because I've done the research, I've got the track record. And so I made the first couple of videos and it was like 500 views. I was like, the fuck? Like, don't you all know how gold this information is? Like, And then like if you go and look at those videos, the person's like, hey guys, Matt Gielen, Little Monster Media Co. Today I'm going to tell you about the most important thing on YouTube. And like the information's gold, but like I can't watch me do that. Like it was like, oh my God, dude, like have you watched a YouTube video before? It just wasn't something that like I conceptualized at the time because like I do data, I do audience analysis. I don't typically do performance analysis because the creators I'm working with just naturally get that and have the performance muscle or have worked on it, which is something that, you know, you've heard me explain a lot, is something that I've worked on. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be crazy and gesticulate and that sort of thing, but you got to entertain people even when it's like heavy information and utility content. And so like, that was the biggest eye opener and incredibly humbling. And my sister-in-law is an actress. I think after maybe about 6 or 7 weeks of making videos, I just called her up and was like, I don't know how you do what you do. This is so hard. Like, and so that was definitely a significant part of it for me. And then, you know, most of my work has been with entertainment properties, right? And it's a very like stereotype way of looking at YouTube. But it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, there's going to be exceptions, but basically we kind of think channels fall into 2 buckets, and it's a spectrum. But those 2 buckets are like entertainment and utility, right? MKBHD is a great example of one that wouldn't fall into either bucket because he does utility content reviews, but they're unbelievably entertaining. Him as a personality is completely engaging, but you're also like every video, no matter what he's talking about, be it an iPhone, you know, Samsung, Mac, whatever it is, a car, right? Like they're stunning. They're like little art pieces, each one of them. And so like, he kind of has combined the best of both worlds to make something that like you're going to get a lot of information about this product out of, but you're also going to be really, really entertained. And so like, you know, if I was going to say there's a North Star for me in terms of running what is by all accounts very much a utility channel, it's the, you know, MKBHDs of the world that just do an amazing job of making utility content that's incredibly entertaining.
Right. That's why I just got a text from Samuel L. Jackson who said, "My God, he swears a lot." I have to stick on that for 1 second because I think this is something that a lot of people ask me. A lot of small channels when they first start, they're like, "How do I get that very thing you talked about? Like, how do I develop a presence on camera?" I always give a really simple piece of advice. Is I always say, when you step up to the mic or step up to the camera, think about yourself being like at a party with a bunch of your friends, and that friend that you haven't seen in a year, he comes in the door on the other side of the room, and you're trying to, you know, get his attention and talk to him. Like just amp it up 10% and make sure you're projecting like across a room, not to the point that you're screaming, but that you need to be heard. Because I always think that people do that. They talk on with their inside voices like they're in a library. But you said that very same thing. So what's the thing that you do? Having looked at your videos, I mean, it's easy to say, well, just be louder, but that doesn't really make sense. What was that thing that you did to get yourself triggered to go, all right, this is what I need to do to get myself to be more animated on screen?
Yeah. Well, in the meat world, the meat space, as we used to say back in Internet 1.0, my wife would refer to, whenever I started talking about YouTube with someone, just like conversationally, she would say, "You get a professor voice," right? And anytime I explained anything to her, she'd be like, "You're doing your professor thing," and it's really weird. And so the first thing was like recognizing that when I'm presenting information, I default to that. And so it was kind of like getting out of that. And the second thing is like, there's a piece of advice that feels very kind of like, you know, YouTube fake guru standard, which is like, you know, talk about what you're passionate about, right? And it feels like, you know, what kind of thing is that? But like, if you're actually passionate about the thing that you're talking about, and you're, in my case, very, very, very well caffeinated, apparently 40 ounces of coffee a day is too much, according to my doctor, right? You can get,
You need a new doctor.
You can get that. You have to be excited for that thing that you're talking about, like assuming excitement is the way to go. I mean, there are going to be niches where it's not, right? Like, you know, if you're a car guy, right? Yeah, you can get excited about cars, but maybe the shtick that's going to work better is going to be, you know, being more, you know, sarcastic or biting, whatever it is. Because at the end of the day, when you put that camera on, even if it's like reality, even if it's, just documenting stuff, like you're still playing a character, right? You're still, like, when you go in and edit, making choices about what you're going to be presenting to viewers as to who they are interacting with. And so it's about kind of getting it, in my view, is about getting into that emotional mindset of, Matt Gielen on the Little Monster YouTube channel is really, really excited to talk about the nuances of retention graphs. And I am, like, mentally, but sometimes it's hard to be like, well, when you're at 40%, like you still have to be excited about it. And so it's kind of getting into that mindset and, being an actor, because you are putting on an act, even if it's still true to who you are. Does that make sense? Like, be authentic, be yourself, sure, but be a heightened version of that.
We've said that a lot, is try to be the best version of yourself on camera. If you can, don't try to look at everybody else and steal their mojo. Just think about yourself and what things work well for you and try to amp those up 10%. And that seems to have worked. D, you got any tips in here, my friend, for trying to have a little more charisma on command?
First of all, watch the
Great
YouTube channel, Charisma on Command.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a fantastic channel. Just amazing channel. One thing that I do, because I find if I don't do this, people will leave comments and say, D, you look tired. So I have like a little ritual now before I record, and I'll do a couple jumping jacks. I'll kind of get up and I'll shake and I'll kind of get my blood flowing. And I kind of have to get into character, so to speak, right? And I kind of amp myself up a little bit. Sometimes I even play some music that fires me up, because when I sit down and I start recording, I want to be elevated. I want to be amplified 10 to 20%, because that camera will suck all of your energy out of you. If you just come and you speak at a normal tone and you don't amplify it, you're going to sound really boring. And I think a lot of people make this mistake starting out, is they think, I'm just going to speak in my normal tone, and that's fine, but you need to bring it up just a little bit. And for me, it's a little bit of exercise, not too much exercise, a little bit of exercise and maybe some music. And when I don't, people will actually say, you look tired. Because I don't have that energy.
What's your go-to music?
NWA.
He's lying. He's lying. It's all sexy time.
Yeah. There's a particular NWA song, man. I'll just put that on and it just fires me up.
Yeah, I go with Wu-Tang. Right now, I'm like, $50 from
you guys
Ghostface.
make me feel
like my go-to.
I'm like, give me some Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin, something with really loud guitars that usually gets me going.
Straight out of Compton, gets me every time.
Yeah.
But that's true. I would add in there that, a lot of things, not just making sure that your presence is elevated and that you're really trying to project, but also learning what not to leave in. I think a lot of us, when we start, is I know I do. I look back at some of my older videos and I want to beat myself up, like, who edited this? Why are these long pauses left in? Why are these sentences that don't need to be there still in this video? Like, for me, I've learned to really trim the fat, not from my body, but absolutely from my videos. We're still working on the body. D, take this. I've been talking so much, please.
Yeah, it's a process. It's a process, and a lot of times, because we're talking about, why your channel isn't growing, and one of those reasons is because you might not have that on-screen presence yet, that on-camera presence. You haven't found your comfort level to where you can express yourself and amplify what it is that you're saying and what it is that you're doing in order to make people engaged and want to watch you. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things. In addition to all the metrics and the thumbnails and all the other basic practices, once that camera comes on and you hit record, you got to bring it. And that's something that's a skill, just like everything else. You've got to build a skill to learn how to make your thumbnails, how to edit. Well, being in front of the camera, that's a skill too. Being a communicator, saying the right words at the right times and putting them all together. It's all skills that you have to learn.
So let me ask this question to you, Matt. Because D was just talking about metrics and analytics, and I always get the feeling that sometimes people get so wrapped up in individual metrics and analytics that they almost do a disservice to themselves, because it's almost like they have their nose pressed against one thing so hard that they've lost perspective. I've seen creators get obsessed with CTR, and they're like, I've got a 15% CTR, and I'll say, that's great. How many impressions? And they're like, what?
Right.
What
100?
When you start thinking about channel growth, Matt, what would you say are the metrics that you really pay attention to? If I said you can only have 3 of them, what would be the 3 that you'd go, those are my go-to every day?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to answer the question directly, and then I'll prattle on for a little while about it, would be CTR, average view duration, and then how frequently you post, right? Those are the three that we kind of pay attention to the most. Sorry, I'll move more centered if you want to go into the three
There
view.
you go.
There we go.
Matt is a team player, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll call it out too. I saw the shift and then oh crap, he's off screen. Let me shift back. Those would be the three big ones, right? Like those are going to determine in large part like
CTR, AVD, and publishing
frequency
schedule.
Of post. Yeah, publishing schedule, frequency of post, how often you post, right? Like those are going to be the things that are going to have the biggest impact on growth. And it's all contextual, right? Like you made the point about 100 impressions with a 15% click-through rate. It's like you'll take a 1% click-through rate on 1 million impressions over 100 impressions at 15% or 100% every day of the week. So it's about understanding kind of the relativeness of it so that you can better understand the audience you have, so that you can better serve that audience, so that YouTube can then take that content and put it in front of people that are similar to that audience and thus expand your audience, right? That's it. That's the whole game, right? Like everything is that game. Now, that said, and speaking to kind of the subject of this live stream more broadly, and to a point that Daniel, you and I have spoken about before, part of that is just getting the ball rolling in the first place, right? Like the vast majority of YouTube channels or creators that I've come into contact with that aren't growing or are stuck, right? Have either kind of the cold start problem that a lot of recommendation systems have, where it's like, if you have no data, right? You have no viewership, you have no audience, how do you use any of that, right? In YouTube's case, it would be what videos did we promote? In an independent creator's case, it would be what videos should I make, right? And so kind of the two routes with that is one, getting external traffic, right? Either external from YouTube or external from your channel, right? When we started Little Monster, we had a lot of help from a lot of people that we've been just friends with in the industry or, had consulted with, right? Chad Wild Clay, favorited one of my videos and I think posted some in the community, right? Daniel, you've regularly shared our content. So, thank you very much for that. And Nick as well. And so that helped our channel begin to grow and begin to accrue an audience so that YouTube would put our videos in front of more and more people like those that were watching it. But more importantly, and I would say the second thing other than the performance aspect is keyword research. So like 95% of what I did, in my career has been in entertainment channels, right? When I worked at Driver Digital, all entertainment channels. When I worked at Frederator, all entertainment channels. At Little Monster, 98% of our clients are entertainment channels. And, as I began making YouTube content for the Little Monster channel, like I'm competitive as shit. So I'm watching all your guys' shit, right? I'm watching every fucking video, right? And learning and listening.
We need a 7-second delay for the stream.
Yeah, I was looking for the delay button or for the censor button, but I couldn't find it. Streamlabs or StreamYard.
Okay, roll with it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's not my channel.
I'm just trying to get TubeBuddy's YouTube channel to monetize. I want the CG strike. But
well done.
I'll try and mute myself. I promise. Right. And like one of the things you guys talk a lot about, right, or the various YouTubers talk a lot about is is doing keyword research. And it was just when you work with an entertainment channel, like, getting a pencilmation video to show up for, dungeon, right? If Pencilmate is in a dungeon, doesn't make any sense, right? Because people searching for dungeon aren't searching for that pencilmation video, right? And search traffic tends to not be very helpful for entertainment channels. And so, as I got further into, the Little Monster YouTube channel and trying to grow that and build that audience, we began doing keyword research and using, not to plug the show I'm on or, kiss up or whatever, but like the TubeBuddy keyword tool is really powerful and really helpful, not just from like an optimization perspective, but also from a programming perspective. What should I make a video about? Like, I feel like we've made a video on just about every YouTube topic without getting like, here's how to look at your playlist traffic graph and use that to determine what playlist should be on your channel and how to make playlists, right? Which is like, okay, how many people is that in our audience going to appeal to? It's going to be a small percentage, right? But regardless, using that tool and seeing what people are searching for gives you an indication as to what people are interested in watching, right? And a lot of those people are in my audience. And so that's actually been really powerful because I don't have a tremendous amount of experience in dealing with utility channels. So my expertise in growing a utility channel like Little Monster was limited. And that helps with the cold start problem, because if you can get your videos to show up in search, right, you make content that people are searching for, well, that begins to accrue audience, right? And so that's been extremely helpful. And kind of the two ways that I see towards like starting and launching a YouTube channel is getting external traffic, right? Even just little bits, drips and drabs from Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, right? From other creators on the platform helps. It gets that ball rolling, because once that ball has momentum, right, then you can actually see significant audience growth. And the two paths are kind of like, you know, audience you don't have access to, getting featured off platform, on platform, whatever, and search.
Well, let me ask
breaking into the suggested and browse is hard. Real hard.
We were talking about the upload schedule earlier, and there's a couple questions we got through the form that's down in the description below. We had a question from Keep It Wild that says, if my upload schedule is once a week on Thursdays, does it hurt my channel to sometimes also upload a second video that's not a regular scheduled time? I know what I think. What do you think about that, Matt?
No, I don't think so. I mean, with that specific of a question, it's hard to give like a perfect answer without the context of it. But generally speaking, no. I think if your audience is into it and they click on it and watch it at the same or close to the same rate as your primary upload, yeah, it's not going to cause a problem. I mean, from a pure viewership optimization perspective, like if you post it, if you post the main video Thursday at 4 p.m. and then you post Friday at 7 a.m., like you're going to steal browse impressions from that previous kind of main upload, right? Because one, YouTube doesn't give the same channel oftentimes the same amount of play within that browse home feed, right? Like if you get one impression in the first like 10, right, you might not get another impression until like 50 or 60th recommendation, right? So posting too close together can harm that previous video in terms of its initial kind of out of the gate inertia.
Let it breathe.
YouTube is a long tail platform, right? And so as long as you're not like stepping on your own uploads, generally speaking, you'll be fine. Like our general recommendation is like, if you're doing 2 uploads, make sure they're 48 hours apart. Same thing with 3, right? If you're going to do more than 3 uploads, hold off. Our general suggestion is hold off until you can get to 7, because one of your uploads is going to get stepped on by one of your other uploads. Right. And generally speaking, what we'd see is a graph that goes like, 1 upload, 2 upload, 3 uploads, 4 uploads, 5 uploads, 6 uploads, 7, and more than 7 in terms of like channel viewership. Very generally speaking, that tends to be what we see.
Matt, one of the questions I get asked a ton from people who are starting at 0, even if they start getting some of that external traffic coming in, they've still got really small numbers. At what point do you recommend somebody actually paying attention to CTR? Because the impressions are going to be really low. There's going to be a point where it's okay, now you want to start paying attention to these metrics. Would you do that right out of the gate, or would you wait until you start to get a certain amount of views?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to discourage people from looking at their analytics, because like my life's mission is just to get people to look at their GD, I'll censor myself, analytics. So, when you're starting out, when, maybe your videos are getting less than 100 views a piece, like I wouldn't overly concern yourself with it, but there can be value in looking at it when it's small, in terms of looking at it in individual traffic sources, right? So like if you're getting those views from browse, maybe just look at that browse click-through rate and see like, if you've got 20, 30, 50 videos up, right? Maybe see if there are some patterns that stick out. All the thumbnails that have purple backgrounds do better than the ones that have blue backgrounds. When I'm, a little bit further away, it actually does better than when I'm really close, right? There can be like little things that begin to pop out pattern-wise. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't overly concern yourself with it if it's, a handful of views, but I think once you start getting close to 100, you might as well start checking them out. So at least you kind of begin to form a mental picture as to what's good and what's not good, especially for like the trends of your channel as a whole. One of the videos we made recently on Little Monster was about when should you change your thumbnail, right? And one of the reasons why I can generally pretty accurately predict in that first hour if I have a good thumbnail or a bad thumbnail is because every time I upload a video, I look at the real-time graph, right? And so I know that in the first hour, generally speaking, a Little Monster video gets 100 views in that first hour in order to be in the top 4 or 5. So if it's trending below that or is below that, well, then I know it's probably either a programming choice, what I chose to make the video about, or a packaging choice, right? The way I titled and thumbnail and the thumbnail of the video and what's that communicating to the audience about the programming choice. And so I think there's still value there, but like if you're, handful of views, I wouldn't overly concern myself with it.
That's a really interesting point you made right there, Matt. And it's funny, when you start talking about really paying attention to a video right when it's published, the kind of velocity it's getting out of the gate, I personally see a lot of creators that I work with get really wrapped up in, and I don't want to discourage this in any way because I'm a data geek, I'm a keyword research geek, but I think that a lot of people are so focused on search, like, well, how will this do in search? How will this do in search? That they forget the minute they publish a video, there are people that video is being served to, and that those initial velocity numbers are important. So when you're talking about just publishing a video, is there a certain, is there a line that you've created where you go, I know on my channel, if I hit a certain CTR right out of the gate and I've got X amount of views in the first hour, that I know this is a runner, or is it a deeper thing than that?
I think it gives you a pretty good indication as to whether or not it could be a potential runner, because the follow-on metrics from that click-through rate are things like average view duration, right? And if, a video is only getting, by hour 4 when we can finally see it, if a video is only getting people to watch like on average like 40%, right? Like I can't really see that until hour 4, and I don't really know, is that going to increase or decrease? Like if I get a shout out from someone, I know it's going to drag down the average view duration. But the way that interplays with like the YouTube system, as well as all the other videos that are potentially ranking for that topic, it's hard to say. But generally speaking, yeah, I know that if a video does more than 100 views in that first hour for our channel, right, it's going to be a good video. It's going to do probably 1,000 views in the first 7 to 10 days. Right, it'll be a contributor. It'll probably rank okay in search, and really, it's kind of like a time frame thing where that video is highly relevant to my audience in those first 2 days, right? And after that, that video has to be highly relevant to a bigger audience that I want YouTube to show that video to. A great example is the video we did breaking down Susan Wojcicki's 60-minute interview, and we first put up that thumbnail, it had my face and Susan's face, and it did really well. But by day 3, we were getting a fair amount of search impressions and some traffic from search, but I saw the click-through rate dropping. And so, I looked at the thumbnail and I said, well, it's got this bright background. It's got me making a stupid open mouth face, which we talk about that for hours if you want. Like kind of thing.
YouTube face. We all have one.
YouTube face.
But does it work?
But it wasn't working because the people looking for Susan Wojcicki's 60-minute interview, 1, don't know who I am, right? And 2, aren't looking for like YouTuber face. Is there drama in this video? Click to find out, right? Like they were looking for the interview or commentary on the interview. And like the video itself is fine. It's commentary on the interview, right? Like she made some really great points in there, and I champion the efforts they're making to clean up the site, which is great. And I make that point. And so like some of the right-wingy troll types that stumble upon that video let me know that they don't approve, and that apparently Susan is the devil for trying to, make YouTube advertiser friendly for the entire ecosystem. That's as far as I'll go in political in this live stream. I saw that and I was like, let me switch this thumbnail up. And so I darkened the background. I removed my face and I put the 60 Minutes logo. And that's been one of our top performing videos since doing that, right? Like I think when I made that change, it had 800, 900 views or something, and now it's got thousands, largely from search and suggested off of, Susan Wojcicki's 60-minute interview search terms or suggestions around, Susan Wojcicki interviews. So The point of that change, though, was that like my audience had already been served that video, right? And they engaged with it and they liked it. But after those first kind of 48, 72 hours, it was really no longer my audience that was going to be primarily served that video. And so I changed the packaging to make it more palatable to a broader audience beyond the people who know me or know who I am.
That's a really smart move. It's something I don't think a lot of people think about. Is people just think viewers are viewers, and whoever might be watching your video is watching your video. But there's a core audience that's going to see your stuff. The most active subscribers or viewers or people who have your channel in their watch history are going to be served your stuff more often when you publish. And then there's those tiers as a video has a lifespan. But while you're talking about that, and I'm going to let D jump in here.
Yeah,
D, there's a questionnaire that I've linked to you on Twitter, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to mention real quick in my own experience. So if I publish a video and I have my face in the video early on, my community is fast to come and watch that video. But as the video, gets some legs on it and search starts to pick it up, I found that if I switch me out for a phone, because I do, mobile tips, right? How to make content with your phone and the different apps. But if I change me out with an app, because if you're finding me on search, nobody knows who I am, nobody cares who I am. But I swap that out with a picture of a phone, an Android or an iPhone, based on whatever it is, and then search picks that up, and I'll always get a huge spike with my CTR if I do it that way. So changing out your thumbnails, I think it's a brilliant strategy.
And let me ask you, Matt, while we're on this subject, how soon are you willing to swap a thumbnail, make a title modification from the moment you publish? I mean, is there a point where you'll go an hour in, I got to make a drastic, exit stage left and go another direction?
So there's two answers to it. The easy answer is like within the first 30 minutes. Right? Like in the first 30 minutes, I should be trending in that first hour towards 150 to 200 views. And then it drops off, through the rest of the hour to end at about 100. So like if I'm in 30 minutes and I've got 75, I'm like, let it ride. So that's generally where it is. Now you want to be careful with pulling that trigger too quick because sometimes there's YouTube errors, right? Sometimes, there's, your audience just happens to be busy that day, right? There can be a lot of reasons. So you want to give it at least some time to actually accrue data. I mean, there was a couple months there where you'd upload a video and the first 2 hours were like nothing. And then in hour 3, they would actually serve it to people. And that lasted for like 2 months, right? Things can change. The kind of longer answer than that is you can spend a lot of time with a video. Right. And a lot of times I'll think up a video, just be like, this is a great title. I'm going to make a video about that thing. Right. And you make the video and you make a video about that thing and you package it, you make a great thumbnail and you upload it and you're looking at it and you're like, that's an awful title. What the hell was I thinking? Like, I've got to change this. Right. Like, and sometimes that happens the minute it goes live. Right. Where just all of a sudden something clicks and you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah,
what
missed
am I
that
thinking?
one.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I try to not cherish any individual video and kind of look at them as like, forgive the characterization, but they're soldiers, right? They're my soldiers. They're my data points, right? And you got to be willing to do what you got to do with them to get the reach you want. I know that's a very drastic analogy for YouTube videos about audience development, but it simplifies things a little bit if you can be a bit more ruthless with yourself and with your content and your packaging, because it's a different skill set. It's marketing, right? Like being you can make great videos, but if you don't know the first thing about marketing, about packaging, about your audience, right? Like very few people are going to see it. You're going to struggle to grow. It's going to be it's a whole different realm. It's nothing like personal about the person or the video creator, right? It's a complicated skill set. There are people that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars a year that are fantastic at marketing. Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
Matt, with all of your experience and all the data you have access to, if somebody's starting at zero, or maybe they just started and they're struggling to build momentum, what are some of the mistakes that you see on a regular basis that can be easily corrected? Little things.
Little things. performance aside, one would be like number one, without a doubt, thumbnails, right? Like that's always the first answer to it. It's when we think about a movie, is the analogy you always give, right? Like when they release a tentpole movie, they spend oftentimes more on the marketing than they didn't actually making the movie, right? Their talents on late night shows, magazine interviews, they do talking circuits, right? Like they do, viral videos. They pour millions of dollars into showing their trailers, right? They'll do, cross promotion where their characters are on like bags of Doritos, right? It's everywhere. It's in your face. You can't miss it. And when we release a YouTube video, we have our thumbnails and titles, right? And that stems from your programming choice, but that's it. That's the vast majority of the marketing that you have for your YouTube video. And it's unbelievably important, your thumbnail and title, the way they interplay, and what really that stems from, which is the programming choice, right? You can't make a video, the fastest shortcut in the world to 1,000 subs and 40,000 watch minutes if your video, is about baking cookies, right?
Right.
So,
right.
That would be probably the biggest mistake from just like a pure optimization type perspective, is not thinking about their thumbnails and titles enough, and not kind of like learning from the people that make videos like we do about different things you can do. The next biggest thing I would say is probably the edit quality on the content, right? Trimming out the fat is unbelievably important, right? And it seems like, well, editing skill, yeah, you got to make something palatable, but like, just trimming out the breaths in a video can cut that video by a minute, but it can also increase your audience retention by, 25, 50, 100%, right? Just from a percentage standpoint, right? Like if you're getting 30%, 20% retention on your videos, like take a, buzzsaw to that content and trim every single breath, right? Like if you ever watch a Phil DeFranco video, it's 10-minute, one sentence, right? Like, it's unbelievably important because of the nature of the platform and the audience on the platform. So like, those would be kind of like the two biggest things I would say. I see, like, there's other stuff like consistency of upload, consistency of content, but like when you're small, that's when you should be experimenting, right? Like, maybe you want to make a Minecraft channel and then you decide, no, I want to do vlogs, or I want to do a bunch of different games, and that's fine, right? It's perfectly fine. It's fine to do it when you have a large audience, right? Ask Dan TDM. He's one of the only successful, creators out there that blew up around Minecraft, that was able to transition that to just a general interest in him, and even a lot outside of video games that I know there's probably more, but it's a tough thing to do. But at the end of the day, he was able to pull it off because people loved him and his personality, and people were watching for him, not necessarily for the Minecraft, even though that shared interest in Minecraft was what blew it up. But that said, like, if you find something that works, generally want to stick to it if your goal is audience building.
Yeah, there's a term that I've heard you say, which I've stolen from you, where you always talk about super serving one audience, where you've said, listen, if you find the thing that works, give them that thing again and again as much as possible. That's probably my loose translation of what you meant. There's a question we got from the questionnaire here from Lacrima Art, who said, would you recommend to promote a well-performing video with Google Ads? Or the second half is, or would the risk of getting dislikes not be worth it? I honestly think the dislikes don't matter. But the first part, promoting a well-performing video with ads. You think that I see a lot of creators do this. Maybe if I run ads, my channel will grow faster. What is your take on ads?
My take on ads is, under no circumstances should you ever use Google Ads to build an audience on YouTube unless you have a decade or more experience doing it. And I'm not just saying that because we offer it as a service here at Little Monster. I'm saying it because I've spent a decade doing it and recognizing that more often than not, for new channels, for channels with small audiences, it's far more harmful because it ends up actually nerfing your organic viewership. It operates the exact opposite as Facebook, right? Where Facebook's like, F you, pay me if you want to talk to your audience. YouTube is like, no, our system's better. F you if you use paid.
So wait a minute. Are you actually insinuating, when I say insinuating, I mean blatantly stating that if someone's out there running ads, that YouTube, the organic reach might be diminished because the paid advertisement is already there?
I won't say it as an absolute assertion, even though I've had YouTube
in between.
Even though I've had YouTube employees literally state that they greatly discount any paid view from any sort of like algorithmic calculation. What I'll say is that I've seen many, many examples of small channels utilizing paid that have seen little or no organic growth from that, right? They can do, thousands of new subscribers in a month, and those subscribers just don't really turn into engaged viewers. And this is even using video discovery ads, not even the skippable in stream, right? Someone clicks on it, they go to the watch page, they go, wow, I like this, and they hit subscribe, right? It's very, very difficult to turn that into engaged subscribership, because basically what you're saying when you do paid advertising is, I know more than the most advanced recommender system in the world that has access to trillions and trillions and trillions of pieces of data, because I can enter some keywords into Google. I can enter some targeting into Google. Now, that said, if you are going to do it, use remarketing. So it shows to your own audience, people that have already watched your content and enjoyed your content. As to likes or dislikes, I think, and I'm probably the main culprit of this, I think we've thought about likes and dislikes wrong for a very long time, because we're publishers, right? We're creators of content. And we think about it in aggregate as to our video. Well, my video has 100 likes and no dislikes. So, it's 100% likes. So YouTube should show it to more people. And I don't think it works that way. I think it works very much like YouTube says it does. It works on the individual level, where if someone likes your video, chances are they're going to be recommending more of your videos later in that session or in their next session. Someone dislikes your video, probably less likely to be recommended one of your future videos. And I think that's where it matters. So if someone dislikes your video, that's actually not a bad thing, because YouTube won't serve them, is less likely to serve them your video in the future, since they've already shown that they're not interested in it, which means your video will keep a higher click-through rate. And chances are there's an audience like that person who could be interested in your content, but for one reason or another, they would be excited about it and hit like, right? So dislikes can actually be a really good thing in terms of like self-selection amongst audience, so that your future videos have good metrics like average view duration and click-through rate.
Nice.
You mentioned early on, you were talking about, if you get a shout out, it hurts your average view duration. And I know a lot of people starting out, they have this idea that if they get a shout out from a big YouTuber, that it's going to just set their channel in motion. You want to talk about that a little bit and talk about how that sort of thing can hurt or help your channel?
Yeah, well, I mean, it can definitely help in the sense that there's going to be a percentage theoretically, right? Like Chad Clay giving my channel a shout out on his channel doesn't help, right? Because it's, a younger audience. It's not YouTube, audience development, right? But him sharing that in a community of other creators was really helpful, right? So it's about percentages and what percentage of the people that see that shout out are actually going to be in your specific target audience, right? Like getting a shout out from a guitar instructional channel isn't going to help my channel. Because the audience that's there is there for guitar instructionals, not YouTube growth hacking, right? And so like, even when I get shout outs from, YouTube audience development channels, right, there's still going to be a percentage of people that just find me repulsive, right? Fair enough. I've been there too. And not, enjoy the content, right? That causes your average view duration to go down. It could potentially cause you to get lower click-through rate in future videos, because that person has watched one of your videos recently and might be served your next one, right? But there's going to be a percentage that convert and turn into fans, right? And that person might already have some of your fans in their audience that just for one reason or another weren't recommended your video. And so it's a good notification. So it's kind of matters of one, scale, but two, also, is it the right audience? And no one's going to be 100%, right? But there can be higher percentages, like, 50% or 40% that would still be really good, right? You just can't think of it as like, well, if I get a shout out from 1 million sub or 500,000 sub channel, I'm going to get 10,000 subs and my life is going to change forever.
Yeah, that's a great answer to that. I know a lot of people think that one big shout out is going to change the world. And sometimes I always get worried that people lose sight of the fact that YouTube's main, method of operation is they're just looking at the audience. They're looking how the audience reacts. And I always feel like some small channels, because I still consider myself a small channel, get so fixated and staring at YouTube that it's like working a job where you say you serve a customer and you quickly look back at the boss like, was that okay? But all the boss wants you to do is do a good job serving the customer. Leave YouTube out of the equation and focus on the audience and just do a great job of getting them to interact, watch, keep watching your content. And a lot of times the other stuff kind of works itself out.
Yeah, it's really, really tough, I think, for creators to conceptualize in their mind that it's about the individual audience member.
Yes.
One, because you're just dealing with massive scale, but two, because you're looking at things from your perspective. I've struggled with this for a very long time. I struggle with it to this day. It's hard to look at it that because YouTube doesn't give you like, you know, Joe from Alabama liked this video. Like they give you like this video got 100 likes and a blank blank click-through rate across, you know, thousands of impressions. So like you have to look at the, you know, data in aggregate for a platform that programs to the individual, right? And so it becomes very difficult to like kind of wrap your mind around that kind of concept and to see it from that perspective.
Right. We got another question that came from the questionnaire here, which is an interesting one. It's about a gaming channel. And I think a lot of people out there have gaming channels and struggle to try to find growth, especially when they're new gaming channels. This was from Mind Taco Games, who asked, as a live stream gaming channel, how would you recommend to grow a channel to the next level? By the way, love the features that are in TubeBuddy. All right, good shout out there. So yeah, a gaming channel that's trying to up their ante. What are the kind of things that you've seen that could potentially help a gaming channel step up their game a bit? Pardon the pun.
Well, that's really tough. He did mention he's a live streaming channel, and I am not a live streaming expert by any stretch of the word. What I would say just generally for gaming channels is you got to do something new. Right? This platform is flooded with people who want to make content around video games and make a living being a gamer and playing games for fans, right? Like you ask, you know, 10 teens in America what their goal is in life to do, and like 5 of them are going to say that, right? So from a content perspective, the vast majority of gaming content that I've seen, I'm aware of, right, is typically some sort of like commentary listicle type of video, right? And I think the most valuable thing I've ever put out there into the world about YouTube isn't any of my algorithm research, isn't any of my little monster videos. It's, even though we made videos about this, is the taxonomy, right? What the taxonomy of YouTube videos does, it's published on TubeFilter, you can read it for free, but basically it breaks down content into kind of remixable components, right? Where if you look at the gaming space, you can say, okay, well, the vast majority of gaming content is in these kind of 3 or 4 combinations of formats. What can I take from other popular content and introduce to kind of the gaming vertical so that's fresh and unique and new, right? And it's not just another person playing a video game, because then it basically boils down to like, is your personality interesting enough? And then, you know, that's how you end up with, you know, crazy people.
So for all the people, for all the gamers, and there's a ton of gamers doing this, they just want to come on and get people just watch me play. That's all they want to do. Watch me play the game. Advice for those people. Because that's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
You. Yeah.
You know, I would say watch the experts, right? Like when I first got started in YouTube audience development, all I did was go and read what was available, right? I read Mark Robertson on Real SEO, right? I went and looked at what the folks over at Next New were doing, right? Ryan Nugent, Andres Palmater, and Vanessa Pappas. Ryan Nugent is VP at Gunpowder and Sky. Andres Palmater is a VP at Facebook. Vanessa is, I think, CMO at TikTok. Right, just absolutely brilliant people working in the space. You know, a decade ago, that's who I looked at. What are they doing, right? And I took their strategies and tactics and said, okay, what can work for me and what won't work for me? And that's how you grow. That's how you iterate, right? To be able to do something new and unique and fresh, you have to know what's come before you, right? Because if you don't, you'll probably just repeat what's come before you. And to look at it with that eye of study, right? So like, you want to go watch Markiplier, great. But set aside some time to like study Markiplier, right? What does he do that's engaging to audiences? What do they like? What do they engage with? What do they don't engage with, right? What can I apply to what I want to do right? Or the games I want to play, to from a tactical or strategic standpoint, that can carry over to me and my kind of unique brand and unique purpose. So that's what I would say, right? Because that's how I've always learned to do anything, right? When I studied film in college, what did I do? I studied the masters, right? And then how creative you can be is going to be what sets you apart. And that's kind of where, not to plug myself yet again, the taxonomy came from. Taxonomy came from, a decade of watching YouTube videos and going, there's a bit of a formula here, and I don't want to make the same thing that everyone else is making. So how do I understand the content so that we can make something new?
That's
great answer.
It's funny when you're talking about gaming channels. When you said that, I think gaming channels almost specifically, in my opinion, have a crutch they need to get over, because it's very easy to capture a game and then either put yourself in playing it overlaid or just play the game. And because it's so easy to capture someone else's work, right, someone else's game, it makes you feel like, look, I'm a YouTuber, I'm gaming. And it's a very different thing than someone like who's actually has to get in front of a mic and present something, because we're forced to have something to say. Where making a gaming channel can be tricky. I see a lot of gamers get wrapped up into I'll just play and that will somehow get me somewhere. Right. And the value gets lost in that. It's very difficult to compete just as a let's play kind of a channel, because it really comes down to, you got to be a great player, and there's so many great players. Nobody wants to watch a mediocre player like me hack their way through a game.
Well, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you're going to do that, it boils down to how many people actually just want to hang out with you for that long. And like me, my wife will give me about an hour before she's like, all right, I'm done. Right. And like, I think a lot of other people might feel that way, or have friends like that, where you got like, okay, we've got a couple hours, but after that, it's like, I need a break. So that's tough. That's a tough place to be, because, how many people in the world do you want to hang out with for, 30 hours in a given month?
Right. Yeah, you got to bring something to it, either showing them a new game or showing them something in the game, teaching them something. I've always said the gamers that I see that bring value beyond just the gameplay, either personality that's through the roof, gameplay that's the upper echelon that's just amazing to watch, or they're showing you how to beat levels or get your first 100 wins in Fortnite, or teaching you something about a new game that's not available to the public. Those things that are catalysts to make people go, it's more than just the gameplay. It's the value that you provide within the gaming niche that can help you stand out. Hey, I got a question here that I go ahead.
Hold on. I got to comment on that. As a former gamer myself, I was #1 in the world at Age of Mythology deathmatch back in college. So I know gamers are always looking. Gamers are always looking for an edge, and you said something in there that was very interesting, which was playing more obscure games, right? Like, I guarantee you there's thousands and thousands of creators out there that would have loved to have been playing Minecraft, when only a handful of people were playing it, or Fortnite, or Five Nights at Freddy's, to reference a couple years ago. Playing those niche games, those games that could pop off, could give you a leg up over other creators that join the tidal wave a little bit later, where you may have been playing it for a while, and you'll have the data, you'll know the game inside and out, right? And you'll have some audience that if a game does take off, right, you're kind of at the head of the pack. But I mean, that's not the way I play video games. Like, I find the games I'm interested in and then just obsessively and compulsively play them until 3 a.m. But gamers are gamers. And, I look at YouTube very much as a video game. It has all the hallmarks of a video game. In fact, I made a video that I've titled, how to game the YouTube algorithm. Sorry, world. That's all about how YouTube is very much like a real-time strategy game. Yeah. And that can give you a big edge. And so something you said in there, like playing those obscure games early, that can give you that edge that could, catapult a channel.
Absolutely. Let's level up to the next question. So if this is a question from Adventures in Dirt, this is an important question that I think, and I want to quickly hit on this, 2 parts here. I want to ask you about how important you think it is to recommend more of your own content within your content personally as a creator in the areas that you can, But this question actually relates to that. For a small channel, this is from Adventures in Dirt. For a small channel, is it better to push all links towards a new piece of content to generate velocity, cards, pins, pin comments, end screens, description, or is it better to push towards similar linked content?
So I would say it's not a prerequisite, but it should be something that you do kind of on autopilot. And from a programming standpoint, one of the best things you can do is make a series of videos, a 2, a 3, a 4 series of videos around a specific topic so that you can link them together, so they're recommended to each other, so that it extends watch sessions and so on and so forth. So from like a programming standpoint, I would equate it to like tentpole programming, right? Where it's like Christmas time is coming up and your crafting channel, you make content about Christmas crafts, right? Because that's what you should do as a kind of successful channel kind of thing. So I would look at it as like part of that. In terms of the specific question about like pointing to new videos versus pointing to related videos, I'll always go with like related videos over like newer stuff. Like view velocity used to be a lot more important. I don't think it's nearly as important now. I think it is still important, but just not like the be all end all. Like the long tail is too long, the data is too rich, the recommendation systems are too good that, a video stumbling out of the blocks could still become your best performing video of all time, right? It just depends on so many factors now that view velocity isn't the be all end all. You still want to get as much as you can, but it's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. So my recommendation would definitely be like the most closely related you can make something, the better it will be. Now, the one thing I will say is that generally speaking, if you're more utility channel, I would not use any sort of end screen that has like best for viewer, because I don't think YouTube understands utility channels or best for viewer in that regard. For example, like
right there, Matt, because I'm talk to me like I'm 3. When you say utility channel, I am like I'm 3. Could you just explain exactly what you mean by utility channel?
It's like an educational channel, right? So utility channel would be like tech review channels or a Little Monster channel or a TubeBuddy channel, right? Where TubeBuddy does a lot of explainer type of videos where you're explaining something. It's where people click on the video to get a piece of information, right? And then generally don't like necessarily go on and watch more because they've gotten that piece of information that they were looking for, right? The way that ends up happening in utility channels, if you use that end screen best for a YouTube viewer, is that what YouTube tends to do is just to go to the most recent video that they haven't watched. And the reason they haven't watched it is likely because they're uninterested in that potential video, or because that video is on a wildly different topic. For example, if you do best reviewer on an iPhone review, and the best reviewer happens to be a Panasonic TV review, right? Because of whatever YouTube has decided, then they're probably not going to click on it, right? I would go with things that are very thematically similar, because YouTube's still going to use suggested and browse potentially to recommend them those other videos. So you might as well try and use your knowledge about your content and about your audience to better program things like your end screen kind of thing. And I've seen time and time again where in entertainment channels, best reviewer outperforms everything. And I've seen in utility channels time and time again that when the user selects it, it performs way better.
Nice. D, jump in there.
Yeah, I just want to say, because I know Andrew gave us the 5-minute mark like 10 minutes ago. I just want to go around the room here and say, because we're talking about reasons why your channel is actually not growing. So starting with you, Daniel, what's one thing that could stop people from growing their channel? One mistake they could be making, or something they should focus on to help them grow if they're starting out or stuck.
I'm going to go with the one that I run into the most, and it's sort of ancillary. Is I get a lot of critics will come to me and say, like, my channel isn't growing. I'm not getting the views and the subscribers I want to get. And then I'll go to their channel and they have 6, 10, 12 videos up. So the number one reason that I think that young creators aren't growing is they just haven't put the time in. You haven't built the catalog. I'm a fan of building catalogs, building channels, not throwing videos out there like star darts, like, did it hit? No? Okay, well, let's try another one. Build stuff that works together. Build a catalog, because if someone loves one video, that's not going to get you momentum. You have to have content to back that up so that they can be invested in your channel and then hopefully over time become invested in you. So breathe, learn the process, build a catalog, Get 50, 100, 120 videos up before you really start saying to yourself, well, this isn't working, because it's going to take an investment.
That's good. Matt?
Well, Daniel stole my answer. I thought it was going to be really poignant.
That's why I told you to go next.
Yeah. Time is the answer. So, I'll piggyback on that, because one of the reasons that's important is, like, yes, hone your skill set, hone your craft, etc. But part of the reason is that YouTube is a long tail platform, right? You see these creators with these huge numbers, right? They've got, 1 million subs, and each new video they put up only does 100,000 views. But what you're not seeing is their back catalog, right? Generating, 20,000, 15,000 views a month across hundreds of videos. That's a huge deal in building audience, right? It's kind of like every video you put down is an investment in future audience, right? And the more of those investments you can put in, right, that compounding interest of videos and that daily viewership, right, is just going to slowly lift that low hum of viewership and audience flowing into your channel. And so that's by far the most important thing, right? Like, there's not a lot of Janelle Elianas out there, right? Like, that is the exception that proves the rule, right? It's real hard to do 1 million subs on 3 videos. There's been like 2 people that have ever done it. So don't, play the lottery, right? Invest slowly in the stock market. Oh my God, I've turned into my dad.
You are your father. Dad, how do I?
Well, I think it's overwhelming in that time. You have to put in the time. I think I think all 3 of us agree on that. So if you're not growing, you haven't put in enough time. Go ahead, Daniel.
I'm going to add one more thing on top of that time, because I'm just going full circle. Listen to your channel. One of the things that I see is some people will get to that point. Well, I've done the 50, I've done the 100, I've done 150 videos, and I'm still not growing the way I want to be growing. What's going on? The ability to listen to your channel and adapt, knowing that things aren't connecting. And if you continue to do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, that's the definition of insanity. So look at your content, look at the way you target videos, look at the way you make your thumbnails, look at the way you make your titles. If it isn't connecting after 50 or 100 videos, shift, pivot, try something different. Listen to your channel. If you've got one video that you published last week that drove 150 views in the first day, and the follow-up video that you published after that did 300 in the first day, take a look at that. Why did one video do twice as many views as the previous video? And learn to repeat the successes so that your channel's screaming at you saying, this is working. Focus and listen on those things that are actually being sent back to you.
Yeah. And it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah,
it's really okay to be wrong and change your mind. Like, you gotta not be afraid to contradict something that you either held as a firm belief, or that is like, what you might believe is like core to who you are as a person, right? It's perfectly fine to change and to grow and to evolve as a person and as a creator. And in your content, like, don't be afraid of that. It's perfectly okay.
Right. So, Matt, listen, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all the knowledge.
Thanks for having me, guys.
But listen, tell people a little bit about where they can find you on every part of the internet and on YouTube.
Yeah, well, you can definitely check out our YouTube channel. We got a really good library of videos that are helpful to building an audience on the Little Monster Media channel. They can also check us out at monsterthumbnails.com. You heard me talk about thumbnails. Basically, it's a thumbnail service that's going to make thumbnails for you, and each thumbnail is actually reviewed and given a round of notes from one of my strategists here at YouTube's, I'm sorry, Little Monster. Sometimes I conflate the two companies, tens of thousands of employees, billions of dollars, and my shop out here in Woodland Hills. But yeah, I'd love for you guys to come over and check us out.
Awesome. Thank you again. We thank everybody for hanging out in the chat and then posting up some really great questions. I hope this was helpful. We will absolutely see you guys again in the next episode. Dee, take us out of here.
Have a good one, everybody. Peace.